Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. So glad you've joined us today to stay curious. Today, we've got a special program to look a little bit behind how a museum nonprofit like we are gets their funding. And to that end is my binary star, Gabriel Rothblatt, here, our executive director of our Space Walk of Fame Foundation. Gabriel, thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having us, Mark.
Well, we want you to come on more as Gabriel and I. He has a distinct job to handle the money side of our foundation that's been in existence since 1988. And I'm over the museum. And between us here, the rose between the thorns, is Annette Jensen. Annette, great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're welcome. Annette is a financial advisor with Edwards Jones. And this is where we have put some of our finances in there. And we're going to talk in general terms, at least these two are, about the challenges as Gabriel sees it. He's been involved in nonprofits and other things most of his life. And he's on the board of the National Space Society Florida chapter. And that's how we first met. And we are now 6 months in, Annette, of Gabriel and I at the helm of this beautiful nonprofit. And Gabriel was smart enough to go to smart minds like you to figure things out there. But Gabriel, an opening remark from you, and then we're going to find out a little bit about Annette, and then I'm going to turn you two loose.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Mark, for your coming 8 years of service with the museum and the creation, everything you've done for Stay Curious and keeping the museum growing and vibrant. So that I could come into this role and have something to work with. It's been very exciting the last 6 months. Actually, really, I mean the last year and a half, because even before I came into this role, we became engaged through 321 Day and honoring of Robert Osband, the father of the 321 area code, which is what led me to join the board here, and then ultimately come into this position and us fall into each other's orbits of these binary stars, as we like to say. So just really appreciate everything that you've done to set the stage for us here today. So I want to start with one question, though, which is for you, Mark. Do you know what makes airplanes fly?
Lift.
No. Money. Yeah, this is a piloting joke I learned when I was taking my student pilot courses. So my instructor, asks is, hey, you know what, makes an airplane fly? And of course, you think the answer is lift, but in fact, it's money. It's money what puts an aircraft in the sky. It's money which puts, it's not lift, it's money puts a rocket into space. And it's not good intentions or volunteers. Ultimately, it's money that keeps the doors open in an institution like this. And so that's what my role behind the scenes here at this museum takes, is how do we manage the resources, how do we manage the money to keep the doors open, to keep programming for people, students, and enthusiasts. How do we do that? What does it take to do that? At the end of the day, money is what fuels it. And so now that we're also here in tax season, I think it's a good time to have a moment and understand, how does this place operate? And what can we do if we like to support the museum or our own dreams, as well. So individually or collectively, it's a really important discussion to have. And I'm excited to welcome Annette to join us to talk about it.
Absolutely. You have some questions about financing or things about the museum. Many of you have been tremendous donors to us, whether it's $100, $50, or more, like some of you have been so generous with. We want you to know that we're being good stewards with your money, and I particularly feel very comfortable with Gabriel and the roles that we've separated into this museum here. So we're going to hear a little about that. But if you got some questions, even if you want to ask Dave Stange about how to raise money, college money for those grandkids of yours there, Annette will chime in on that. But let's first learn a little bit about Annette. Where'd you grow up, and how'd you get in the finance world? And you've talked to our board, and you're very into your job, I know. But
Right.
where'd you grow up?
I grew up in the Midwest, so I grew up in Kansas, in the Missouri area. That's where my education is from, is Missouri State University.
Okay.
So I was able to grow up kind of in that Midwest wholesome environment. And as I shared with you earlier, was able to visit the Hutchinson Space Museum.
Yeah,
as
Cosmosphere. She's familiar.
yes.
Did you go as a school bus tour there, or
No,
just
a
as
family vacation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, family vacation. So just able to explore that as a child, and then my interest in finance came along just as a child growing up, kind of in that era where finances were a little slim, and so I just had that interest in how do finances work, and how
Hmm.
could I provide for my family in the future. And so
You're
it just
married? You
grew.
have children?
I am married. My husband did pass away last year, and I do have
Oh.
children. I have a 26-year-old that's in college himself, and then my husband was a retired police officer, and then I have a stepdaughter as well that's 38. She works in the healthcare
All
industry.
right. Well,
Mhm.
they're grown, and
Yeah, grown and on their own, doing their own
yeah.
thing.
So
Yeah,
that allows
yeah.
you some freedom there.
It
But
does. It does.
tell us a little bit about Edward Jones. Is this the only
Mhm.
financial group you've worked for, or did you work for other ones?
Yes, no, Edward Jones has been my heart. I've been with Edward Jones coming on 11 years.
Hmm.
And so that's where my heart is. We're based on a partnership. So we have that buy-in within our firm to be good stewards. Just as the museum is a good steward of their money, we're good stewards to our firm, and we give back not only to our firm, to our clients, but also the community. And that is the draw for me to Edward Jones, is that personal touch that we have toward the community, and that we are looking out for the best interest of our clients.
Well, I know Gabriel and I like that a lot. Gabriel's very community minded, and as an example of, he really took this March 21st celebration of our area code and tourism, and this beautiful man, Ozzy Osband, that brought us the area code. You did a great job, Gabriel, of getting that baby off the ground. And we did our second one this year, and looking for already making plans for next year. So I'm going to let Gabriel, you kind of lead the financial discussion there, and I may go off camera and grab my smart tablet there to see what kind of questions you all have for Annette and Gabriel. This is an opportunity to ask us questions about our museum. Annette asked me this. We're somewhere around a $250,000 a year operation, Gabriel. And about half of that salaries, of course, right? Just to set the stage for, we're not real big, we're not real small, we're just kind of, just that porridge is just right in front of us there. So take it away, my friend.
Absolutely.
That.
Yeah. So the U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation Incorporated and its DBA, the American Space Museum, we do operate, in about the $250,000 a year, level, and roughly about half of that, a little more than half of that, is salaries of staff, and the rest is, mortgage, insurance, utilities, repairs. We are in a historic building. This building that the museum is in is the original Brevard County Records Office.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the at least parts of the building are 100 years old.
Yeah.
And so there is significant upkeep that goes into that building.
And we're going to celebrate our 10th year of owning this building here in July. We're 10 years into a 20-year mortgage. Isn't it 20 years?
Yes, so we did have a refinancing, which was before me. We certainly only have roughly 10 years left in paying off the equity, on the building that we have here. So very thankful to our board members who have gotten us into this position, and so we do not lease the building where we had been in other locations. I believe 3 other locations prior to here, we were leasing space and then ultimately kicked out, having to move. And so this is the forever home, we believe, for the museum, because we have, a very favorable terms on the mortgage, thanks to the Van Ellsberg.
Yeah, Els Van Ellsberg, beautiful lady in our community here, big Rotarian. She was a president of Rotary International, and she found us through the Charlie Mars regime of Apollo workers that built this and that. So we're very grateful to her for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's given us a great, and I do hope that in the next few years that we are able to build up on this foundation that we have had here, and add more galleries, more activities, event space to the museum here, and remain and grow as a gem of historic downtown Titusville, in adding things, like a science center, perhaps even an observatory, onto, as we continue to grow here and in this neighborhood, of which we're very fortunate. And this is also how we found Annette and Edward Jones, who also, I don't know if you've always been in that location, but if you've had, then yeah, right. So, I mean, we moved into the neighborhood roughly about the same time, 10 years ago. And so I think this is actually, a component of what makes a good relationship, and also what makes good use of funds and finances. So we were actually with Edward Jones, but not with your office prior to me coming in.
Yeah, right. You're in New Smyrna or something.
New Smyrna, right? And
Their office is literally beside our parking lot here.
Absolutely.
And and we're looking forward to Annette availing our conference room with some of her seminars and so forth in there.
Yes, that'll be beautiful.
So tell us about how this nonprofit looks to you, and originally on the outside, now you're on the inside.
Right. So it really ties into Edward Jones wanting to give back to the community and give back to charity, so we could help others to be able to do that as well by doing charitable donations to the Space Museum, and then also be able to take advantage of some tax deductions in that manner to be able to do those qualified. It's called a qualified charitable distribution. It can come directly from a person's IRA account only. So an IRA, they have to be 70 and a half in order to be able to do that charitable qualified distribution. It helps where the tax standards changed a little bit over the past couple of years, to change some of us to where now we're taking that standard deduction on our tax return, and we can no longer itemize a lot of times. So if we do that qualified charitable distribution, it's going to lower what our adjusted gross income is, and we don't have to be in that position where we can itemize.
Now, you and Gabriel got a long way till you're thinking about 70.5, but me not so much, or Marty over there. And this is an important tool, I think, as you discover it, you people out there that in retirement age and in your 70s, they can take advantage of this and help us, but it's also helping them a lot, right?
It is, and we find that a lot with our clients. Our clients are a lot like us at Edward Jones. They're very giving, and so we tend to attract the same type of client that we are as a firm, and our clients are very giving, and so a lot of times we find that they are giving already, but this is just a better tax advantaged way to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's actually, I think a great point is, again, unbeknownst to us, and we're not going to name names, but after we, made this relationship, we found out that in fact some of us here in the museum were already clients with you. So I think that that's again another great sign of what to do here. But again, for those of us who aren't 70 and a half yet and have hit that point of the qualified, the charitable distribution,
Right.
what are some of the things that someone who is younger, can or should be doing? I mean, like setting up an IRA at all, to begin planning for not only, just their retirement, but their philanthropy, their giving, their legacy. Um, what are some of maybe the earlier tools or things that they should be thinking of, in order to position themselves to be a champion of the things that they believe in?
Right. Thank you so much for that question. That's an excellent question. And that is what we do at Edward Jones, is help plan for retirement or be in retirement if we're already 7.5 and we're in retirement. But planning for retirement, sure, we can definitely be contributing to those IRA accounts, planning for those distributions in the future, planning for those qualified charitable distributions in the future. We can also be looking at who our beneficiaries are on our IRA accounts. And sometimes those beneficiaries can include not only maybe our children that we want to leave the majority of possibly our IRA to, but we could also leave a portion of that to a charity like the Space Museum. So we do have several of our clients that are very charity minded, and they do leave their assets to charities when they're planning for that retirement. So that's something that we can help do at Edward Jones, is help develop that plan of how do we plan for retirement, how do we save for our IRA, and then how are we going to give back to the community while we're saving and also once we hit retirement age.
Excellent. Yeah. So, you know, many of us who are, say in my age bracket, who are working today, don't have the same pensions and necessarily, that people had 20 plus years ago. So setting up, you may need to independently set up an IRA where that may or may not have been something that happened for you through your employer,
Right.
In the past, which is an important, distinction that people need to be aware of. We're living longer than ever now, so we really do need to set that aside. And then I think the second piece of that is understanding that you can have a beneficiary above and beyond your next of kin, whether that's a spouse or or children, that you can make a cause like this museum a beneficiary of those retirement instruments.
Absolutely. And that's a great point to your age group, being able to save within an IRA if you don't have the access to, say, a 401k within an employer. There's also, if we have changed jobs or changed careers, sometimes we can take that 401k with us to our new job. Sometimes that's an opportunity for us to look at the possibility of an IRA, but we need to, look at all of that and see what's in your best interest in order to do that.
Absolutely. So we've spoken about this a bit before, but maybe can you help the audience understand the difference between giving directly to the entity and then giving through the charitable distribution, and how that differs in tax implications?
Sure, absolutely. So the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, just provides that provision that if you were to do it directly from your financial institution, say Edward Jones, if we were to help you to make that charitable distribution from your IRA account, then the IRS just allows that provision for you to have that as a qualified deduction within your tax return, versus if you were to just donate directly to the Space Museum, then you need to be able to itemize. And with standard deduction versus itemizing, most of us fall into the bucket of needing to just take that standard deduction. So we may be donating to a charity, but not getting the tax benefit because we're not able to itemize. So if you would work with your financial advisor, then your financial advisor can help you to do that more tax efficient.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful component of relationships, and I think the power of wealth and capital.
Right.
So, I came into this position. We had an existing certificate of deposit with Edward Jones, but it was in a distant, office. And then through that, I acknowledged that we had literally next door neighbor, and we, developed that relationship, which after all this time, then actually, got us better engaged, understanding each other's businesses better.
Right.
You've been in the museum, more times in the last, couple months than you had in 10 years prior, right?
Right.
But also, what I acknowledge is that a rising tide lifts all boats. So for here in Titusville, for us to, to bring money into your office works back because that brings people into our business.
Right.
Right. And so I think that, this is, it mirrors what working through Edward Jones in order to give, directly to the institution is actually easier for you as the donor and for us as the donee, to do that, just as us working with a local, financial advisor, has benefits above and beyond just the great interest rates and the advice, right? Because an Edward Jones in another city is not going to be able to send us people into our door, right? In the same way. So again, I just like the symbiotic relationship, that we've been able to build and thrive with Edward Jones.
Right, right. Yeah, and it was beautiful where we were just working as a partner with our other Edward Jones branch to help you, I believe, with paperwork at the time that you needed. And again, we work as a family at Edward Jones, so we were helping in that sense. And then I believe it was you that asked the question, could we just work with our local Edward Jones branch?
Absolutely.
Right,
Yeah, absolutely.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, Gabriel's a lot like me. Why deal with something on the other side of town when you're passing four of them to get there? And I think it just adds a lot of good relationship. It's good to put the face on somebody like that, like you and Jenny, your associate over there next door. And I said that we would allow you to do a little Edward Jones promotion for the company there. So why don't you tell our guests? And we've got Gary Gerald's watching up. He just got off his tractor up in Collins, Georgia. I'll be bringing you some Vidalia onions that Gary's going to be bringing me one day, right, Gary? Looking forward to those. Tom Celentano's up in Connecticut. Robert Law is up in Dundee, Scotland. And he sat right there, one of these chairs in his kilt during our big shuttle fest there. Robert, good to see you. And Steve Jokums, who's certainly been a financial supporter of our museum. He says that to echo what Gabriel started out with, no bucks, no Buck Rogers.
That's right.
Okay, on there. So tell us a little bit, some of the details. What kind of interest rates is if you can share any of that sort of stuff with us? Give us your company pitch there.
Oh, absolutely. So a lot of those rates, those change for us daily. So those are available on our Edward Jones website. You can go directly to my website, or you can go to Edward Jones.
So
just our
$10,000 in your bucket there's what's the interest rate today on it about?
I don't know that interest rate for today, and a lot of times that depends on how long we're going to hold that for you. I will say that for us, with our interest rates that we can offer on our CDs, we're very competitive with interest rates that you will find out in the market at your local banks. And then we're able to help you manage those certificates of deposit, those CDs. We're able to help you manage that, as we did with yours here, Gabriel, to help provide, and maybe you can speak to that, how we were able to help with that certificate of deposit that provided you a little bit different service than maybe what you get when you're working with a bank to get that same certificate of deposit.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I've really enjoyed, I think, working with Edward Jones in relation to, the banks, they are specialized, and maximizing your capital is really what they do. whereas most of your banks on the corner, that's not really where their bread and butter is. And so they are more distracted. They have maybe too many things to offer you. And generally speaking, your capital is sitting in a low interest bearing, checking or savings account with them. You go in there and you make a deposit. They rarely have a idea of what your best interests and needs are. And it actually, for their business model, the more interest they give you on your money, the more they lose, because that's really how their model is built on, as they are lending your money out, and so keeping you at a low interest rate is in your corner bank's interest, pun intended. Whereas with Edward Jones, it is much more of a relationship based business. They understand the client, and their model incentivize and allows for putting your money where it is going to do the most good. So they are rising with us. So we were I was coming into this position rather appalled to find how little we were making our money work for us.
Right.
And it can be stressful and time consuming to try to read the market and then call 12 different banks and see who's got that's where the relationship with the financial advisor like Edward Jones, particularly like Annette, really comes in, because that's what their expertise is. So we've set financial goals for the year, and we're only in April, and I would say probably about 90% of our way to the financial goal that we had set. So we're really excited about how that relationship has come together.
Right. And we were able to look at the finances, and you were able to ask questions, and then I was able to ask you questions, figure out what those goals were, and then we were able to establish, okay, well, then what's the best vehicle? What's the best financial vehicle for you that we have available at that time to be able to accomplish that goal? And then we can reassess that on an ongoing basis with you.
Yeah, I will say, where we had moved our money from to, where it had been, and now we've moved that into Edward Jones. The other bank has not noticed. I mean, and this is often the sad thing about how these banking relationships work. But that was a rather significant sum of money, and they seemed completely unconcerned about where it went. And I am much happier now, with the future, of the museum's finances, and the relationship that we have, because we know what the money is doing, we know where it's going, and how we can, grow and leverage off of that.
Right.
We're talking with Gabriel Rothblatt, though it says VP Treasurer there of National Space Society. He is all that. And of course, he's our executive director of our Space Walk of Fame Foundation. We got our 501c3 in 1988, and the museum followed into, I think, one of the malls is one thing. So actually, Annette, they never really wanted a museum. It was all about Spaceview Park and the monuments of Spaceview Park, and $100. Marty would give us $100. We put his name on the Apollo Spaceview Park monument up there.
Mm-hmm.
And then some people would come in and say, I want to buy, my mother worked for Boeing, I want to buy a $100 plaque for her out there. By the way, here's her box of stuff. She passed away. And in that box of stuff, this museum was sprung up out of that, quite literally.
Wow.
And it was not an intent to have a museum. It was all about this beautiful Spaceview Park that we are the caretakers of it, and we'll start having more events out there. So that's part of what we've done. And I'll interject this and ask you and Gabriel both. You've been in Florida a while. You deal with other nonprofits everywhere around the fruited plain. I think some of the grant money that was taken for granted over the years, particularly with this museum, doesn't exist anymore, or if you're lucky, is just a percentage of what it used to be. Gabriel, speak of that, of how important it is now to keep our eye on our Edward Jones account and other things. When you have our state in particularly has taken away a lot of money from nonprofits. Just not the state, the county commissioners took a total of $1.2 million away from about 15 different nonprofits. We were one of them. We got a little bit of that back. Gabriel, speak about those. That's truly his role in navigating these obstacles.
Absolutely. So that transition in how the state and local government has supported cultural and historical institutions is definitely part of the transition which led me coming into this role. And the previous year we had received some $75,000 in government grants that went to it went to zero and then back up a little bit. So we did receive $15,000 from the Brevard County Commission and their tourism development office, and we consider them partners, and we're very grateful for the relationship that we have here. But for a museum like this, that was a huge hit to our bottom line, one that was at initially considered maybe not survivable, at that time. So the every little bit you can imagine makes a big difference right here. So going from less than 0.5% interest rate, which is what we were getting on some of our money, to over 4%, which is what in fact the first CD realized I think was over 5%, and so even in the economy that we're in right now, we were seeing some 20-fold increase in our bottom line on our capital. So that was very important, very necessary when we're looking at how we readjust how the museum funds itself. Which, let's take a quick moment to look at the pie of the museum's funding, right? So we have admission entry to the museum, which maxes at $10 a person, right? Kids under 12 are free. We have discounts for senior, military. We do group rates, but it's $10 a person, at top, walking in, belts through the door here. We do see good numbers. We're happy to see people in here, but as you can imagine, at a museum of this size, there's only some. We're no visitor complex, out here. So
we can't charge $15 for parking and
we can't get away with all these things, and $20 chicken nuggets and all that stuff. So that's one piece of the pie. We in fact pretty much double that by the gift shop. Just like any other, museum and everything, you come in through the front door, you exit through the gift shop, which is still our front door. But our gift shop sales are very important, and we've done a lot and continue to do a lot to increase the gift shop sales. And this is our next big project here at the museum, is a renovation of the gift shop, which will be a memorabilia store, as well. We participate in the auctions, which is also a sizable amount of our revenue. We have membership, so if you are not a member, please go online, visit our membership page. If you are a member, thank you for that support and your continued renewals. And then the thing that we outside the museum is in the donations, right? Our special events and directed donations, right? So those make all of the difference, because at $10 a head through the door, we are just paying for the lights and energy it takes to stay open, to do that. It is the charitable distributions, right? It is the donations that someone who comes to an event and writes us a check. Those are the things that keep the museum viable, sustainable, right? So without those, honestly, it's not sustainable. We could not support ourselves just off of $10 admissions, but it is also those help. It is also the help of those donors that makes us available to families, to retirees, to veterans, to everybody, and allows us to be, this beacon that we are, at $10 a head through the door. That is certainly subsidized by the kindness and the generosity of our donors and the qualified distributions.
Annette, pick up on that. How's the landscape that you see with other nonprofits and even businesses you deal with?
Right, absolutely. So I love what you say, where by you receiving the donations, then it allows you to pay that forward and be able to provide those discounts to our military or our students or our seniors. And so that's a wonderful tie-in to that charitable donation is actually getting paid forward as a charitable act of the museum. And so again, that ties into Edward Jones and our basis of being community minded. And seeing that with our other clients, our business clients, our individual clients, our clients that are retired and maybe are looking to be able to get back to their community or be able to work maybe a part-time job and then take advantage of how can that part-time job then support charities and support donating to the museum. And then how can we at Edward Jones then help you with those donations to make the best improvement on those donations that we can so that you then in turn can give back to the community.
Absolutely.
Well, we're saying hi to Mark Fell. He was at Shuttle Fest and enjoyed it. Julie Clay, she's local. Hello, happy Wednesday to you, Julie. Dean Babcock is up in Illinois. Man Space is Mitch Rothman. Mitch is in Philadelphia right now, and Mitch has pledged his Man Space Facebook and personal money from he and his wife Paula to help us improve our gift shop with a sizable donation there. And the Usiak brothers, Tom and Mark, they're up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So Edward Jones is everywhere
We are.
in our country. So up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, or up in Macomb, Michigan, where Dave Stangy's up there watching with his two grandchildren, Mia, hi little Mia and Nick up there. Is Edward Jones involved with one particular organization nationwide, like United Way? Where are they giving back to the community nationwide?
So one of, and there are several, but one of is the Alzheimer's Foundation is important to us.
Okay, Alzheimer's, okay.
As an organization, we find a lot with that particular Alzheimer's that can affect a person's finances. So again, we just try to always look at what's in your best interest, tie that back to how can we help. And so if we can help with that Alzheimer's, then we can help folks with their finances where that medical condition can truly drain your finances, as you know from working with the charity. Your finances can get drained very quickly, especially when you lose like that federal funding. Then it can get drained very quickly. So by us being able to help in that regard, we're not only giving back to the community, but we're also helping them financially as well.
Well, so any other organizations that's a sweet spot for Edward Jones? Alzheimer's certainly logical, that and
Right.
just insidious when it's
Right.
in your family. And
Right. So the best way that I can answer that question is that we are, as financial advisors, we are able to utilize what's important to us as well, what's important to our clients. So as individual financial advisors in our individual branches, we're able to pursue those things that are important to us and be able to give back in the way that's meaningful to us. So for a person like myself with a husband that worked in law enforcement, for instance, that might be something that would be very important for me to be able to give back is to the law enforcement community. Whereas for another financial advisor, maybe with young children, maybe supporting the local school district might be very important to them. So that is the nice thing about all of our Edward Jones offices across the country is we're able to give back in a way that is very meaningful to each of us individually, or to our branch office administrators, to Jenny, who is my branch office administrator. A cause that's very important to her is making sure that within the state of Florida, you have an opportunity on your driver's license to be able to list who your emergency contact is. And so she works with our clients to help them to know that, so that if you're in an accident, law enforcement can get in touch with your family in a more timely manner. And so again, that ties Jenny to me with my law enforcement connection, and then ties us back to the community.
Well, I'm enjoying this conversation with Annette as well as Gabriel. And of course, we're on YouTube and we're not doing an advertisement for Edward Jones. There's plenty of financial advisors out there. So don't flag us, YouTube, for just like they can do some of that stuff on there. But no, we just wanted, this is who we're aligned with, and there's plenty others out there. And we wanted to just make sure that people know that we're
Absolutely. So anywhere that you would have your IRA account, you would be able to do that qualified charitable distribution, because that's not specific to Edward Jones. That is specific to your IRA, and that's specific to the IRS and how the IRS allows you to do that.
okay. Well, we're talking about sensible investing, a little bit drawing the curtains back on our museum finances here. As a public nonprofit, we have to be transparent on everything, and we are. Gabriel, we got a question here from Dean Babcock. How successful is Shuttlefest 4 financially for the museum?
Excellent. Yeah, so we are still, receiving, some final bills and paying off on that. But it was by far our most successful Shuttlefest. And it, I would say, from what I've seen so far, one of our most profitable events, in years, if actually not, ever, from a standpoint of the partnerships, the sponsorships, the ticket sales, and the reimbursables. So we actually came into doing Shuttlefest with a fresh approval from the Brevard County Commissioners. So we had, up to $10,000 in reimbursables that we qualified for, which will, certainly help with our bottom line. We sold over $9,000 in tickets, and brought in, over $5,000 in direct sponsorship, donations. And I think, we, which is all great, because especially from the standpoint of having the county funds that we could reuse as reimbursables, that really helps the bottom line of the event. So even though we have put out these expenditures, those are going to get reimbursed. So in effect, we brought in, I will say, no less than $15,000 into the coffers of the museum.
Actually, more like 26,000.
Absolutely.
When we added up some generous donations and other things in there, and our target was kind of 10 grand. We want to Shuttlefest to clear. And I think we're going to be pretty close to that. And in relationship, Shuttlefest 3, we pocketed about $1,200. but it was completely different level, taking it to this level. And yeah, we're still checking out things on here, but this is it's worked the way we wanted it, Gabriel, creating a business model for the museum, and definitely this is the most money raised in a single event in 10 years for the museum easily. So,
Yeah.
and thank you for all of you that were at it. Most of these people attended it there, and so we're grateful. And like again, we're transparent. We need to raise the money, um, and when people see the good cause and what it's going to, you opened up your wallets and put dollar bills and $5 bills, and even pulled a $50 bill out of our donation bins that we had around the place there. So, thank you, and then it's up to this gal to turn it into more money for us
There
there.
you
So,
go. There you go.
but
Absolutely. Yeah. So we definitely enjoy understanding what that means to you to be able to take those dollars and turn those into more money. It's not just money to us, although we're a financial institution. It is not just money to us. It's about fulfilling the goals that you have. And so it's wonderful to have that relationship and be able to understand how it actually affects you, how it's actually meaningful to you, and what you actually use it for.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'd like to jump in that because we are talking about the finances. We're getting into the weeds of some of how the money that this works here, but I want to bring it back to what the money means, and what the money that we are raising and that we're stewarding means is the legacy of the space worker, of being able to tell to future generations, what we accomplished, as Americans, and going to space, right? That's what this museum is. The gallery to the women pioneers of space, the gallery to the space workers. All of that, is a means to an end. But the ends that we are financing and that we are doing all this work for, is to preserve and inspire the legacy of the American space program, commercial or state sponsored, right? But for us to go to space, for what it means, for the stories of people who were crane operators, to welders, to spacesuit engineers, to the
janitors.
astronauts themselves, they're it takes a village, it takes a nation, and that's what this is really all about. But it does, just like an airplane, sure, lift might physically be a thing, but at the end of the day, we wouldn't know that without the money. We wouldn't be able to tell children about the Apollo program, right, without the donations. The door entry keeps the lights on in the building, but it's the donations of our sponsors, our enthusiasts. That is what allows us to write the programs. That is what allows us to tell new stories, to have this new studio, right, in order to share Stay Curious. That is what your money and our stewardship of that money is making possible.
Gabriel's drank the Kool-Aid, Marty. What can I say? It's that's why I moved here after 35 years. Think about that, folks. Let that set in. I left 35 years of friends and family to come to this museum for exactly what Gabriel's talking about. The American space program, the world owes everything we're doing today to our space program.
Right.
And other space programs around the world copied us and learned from our mistakes and our successes. And we're just that's why Gabriel and I clicked. He was so passionate about it when I met him, and we're just lucky. And we saw a lot of passionate people over the weekend, last weekend. And they get us Robert Mecklenburg. He chimed in from the Netherlands, is watching here today, okay? And we're going to have Ed Kahara come in from Saudi Arabia, probably, or South Africa, I think she's at. But so to kind of wind down here our conversation, Gabriel's absolutely right. The money is to preserve the birth of America's space age in its delivery room, Brevard County, Florida. And you've been around our museum a little bit here. What do you see that you can pass on to other people that have not been here?
Right. So although I'm not that worker that you're honoring or that astronaut that you're honoring, it draws back memories that I have of, being a child. And when I was in the 5th grade was when we had the Challenger with Krista McCullough. And my class, we had written and asked for our teacher to be that teacher on that
Oh,
shuttle.
really?
So being able to be in the museum just as a person not tied to the industry, it helps to draw back those memories for me, which are, good and also bad memories. But it's nice to have that connection back and to kind of reinvigorate that interest that a person that's not in the space industry has for the space industry, and the love that I had at the time being a child, or going to the museum in Hutchinson, Kansas, like we talked about, and remembering that trip with my dad and my siblings.
The great cosmosphere up there.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just a portion of what that is, but we're so proud of what we do here. And you were in the museum the other day, and Homer McDaniel, only 92 years old.
Only.
How lucid was that gentleman to give you a tour around here?
Goodness, yes. The knowledge, and to be able to hear his stories and hear his explanations, and to recognize his age, as you point out, his young age, as you point out, right? That was wonderful.
He keeps our Cape Canaveral gallery running.
Yes.
With our little show there. It's truly truly a unique place, as I reiterate every time I'm on this show. And I wake up every morning just driving in, and I go, how in the hell did this happen to me? I get up and I'm turning on Grissom Boulevard and going by White and Chaffee Road, and then get on Columbia and come down here to the museum. And Gabriel, I feel like what we're doing is very important. We're not just a museum. We represent Americans at their finest. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. I grew up in DC, Washington, DC. So I had the privilege of, just hopping on the metro and going to the Smithsonian museums. And, those are incredible. And they're free. And they're free because of, the donors, government and not, who have made them available. My passion and my education is because of those resources. I was fortunate to be in the shadow of those resources, but not everybody is. And, for here, we are. That resource, in the shadow, literally the shadow of the VAB. If this was a clear wall, we pretty much see it from,
we're 9 miles away
from right here.
And this is what Stay Curious is all about too, is extending our museum out to you folks on there. And this year I want to do more artifacts and so forth, bring in to show you more of our museum in here. That's how we founded this Stay Curious during the COVID pandemic. I realized the money given to our museum was from donors. We didn't want to close for 6 months and let them know we're just going to gather dust and so forth. So to be relevant, we created this little video podcast on Facebook Live, and because I've been a public speaker in astronomy and so forth, it's very easy for me with our late executive director Karen Conklin to give me the full reins to build this, to reach out to the community up there around the world now, to share our beautiful museum. So it's so far so good, and we're enjoying this a lot.
And how wonderful to make that transition during COVID to still be able to provide access to the museum.
It is, and half these people that we commented have been in this museum, and some of them on our show here. Well, as we end this nice conversation, thank you all for sticking with us and not having your eyes glazed over by the finances. You had some very good questions there. Dean Babcock says, having met some of the space workers during Shuttle Fest, the mission of the museum is so important. Thank you, Dean. We really feel that. Is there something we didn't ask you, Annette, that you'd like to share with our viewers today?
I don't believe so. I believe we covered it very well, and like you said, not to get too far down in the weeds on the finances, but the high level view of it is that we can help you at the Space Museum, and we can help others. Any of us in the financial industry can help to be able to provide what you provide back to the community.
Well, thank you for representing your business, Edward Jones, so well there, and also not just being we're just not clients, we're partners, and,
Right.
and we're friends. This is the way
Right.
Gabriel and I like building our relationships, is people that are right around us and not halfway around town that you're never going to see except, occasionally. So thank you very much
Thank you
for
very
your
much. I
input here.
appreciate it.
And Gabriel,
Thank you.
why don't you put a button on this for us here, my friend?
Absolutely. Well, I think I mean, I might be
Yeah.
wearing enough buttons already, but well, thank you, Mark, for doing this. Thank you, Annette, for coming and help educating the audience on ways that they can help us here in the museum, and just tools available to them. Annette has prepared these lovely booklets with just great information about charitable giving 101, donating your IRA distributions to charity. If you have further questions, feel free, please reach out to a local financial advisor or Annette at Edward Jones. Also, us here at the museum, we'd be happy to share some of this information with you, answer any other questions, and help preserve and inspire the story of Americans, and the ultimate journey of going into space. So I think that's it for me, and just happy, somewhat surreal, but just thrilled to have found my place here in this museum, and doing my part to preserve and inspire.
Well, thank you. Space history 53 years ago, right now. A man named John Young and Charlie Duke, two men, were walking on the moon. Now, you certainly have heard of the John Young Parkway.
Yes.
Well, he was born in San Francisco, but he grew up in Orlando.
Oh.
And so that parkway is named after John Young, and a lot of people don't know that. Charlie, he's passed away at age 87 about 4 or 5 years ago. Charlie Duke is approaching 90 years old in October, still out there talking about it. And how many of you knew about 53 years ago was the next to the last moon landing going on? And this is why we want people to never forget about that, because it was mankind's greatest adventure. It was built at that time. And what is another adventure that you can put above that? Maybe just going to Mars, But so that's what we love celebrating, and you all make that possible. So thank you both for being on here today. Hope you've enjoyed this little different type of Stay Curious. Tomorrow's Thursday. I think I'll get back on the beam with the shuttles of the month of April. 18 beautiful shuttles were launched in the month of April, one of the busiest months of all. And then how about let's go to your backyard Friday. Well, I'll tell you what's up there in your backyard as the moon is in the morning sky. Marty asked me what that bright star in the morning is. There's another bright star in the evening sky. The skies are in transition from winter to spring, so we'll take you in the backyard Friday and do some stargazing, as I love to do and share with you. So thank you both for being here again.
We
Yes,
got
sir.
the smiling moon coming up here.
Yeah, we got the smiling moon coming at you there. How many days old is that moon? Okay, find out. Stay tuned and stay curious. So thank you both. I hope you enjoyed this, Annette, as much as we did. And thank you for being a friend and partner at our museum. And thank you for Gabriel, of course, for being who he is. He's become a good friend, and we're doing the best we can with what we have here at the American Space Museum. And what we enjoy having is you watching our programs and contributing to our museum, just not financially, but morally, spiritually, as well as the artifacts that some of you have donated to us. So until next time, I'm Mark Marquette saying I can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.